As the cliche goes, April showers bring May flowers. But usually what comes after is the heat and dryness of summer. Hello again, Essay here. And before the hot weather of the holiday shows up, you should indulge in my new short story, The White Cat, a free exclusive on Substack. The links are down below in description. Join Margot Thompson, a beautiful stage actress and recent widow who finds salvation in the form of a white cat during a night of terror. While checking out my oddball thriller, remember that my Glitch series is still available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. The links are down below in the description. While you'll find my peculiar story about a white pussy entertaining, that doesn't mean I'm out of ideas. I still have more stories coming down the pike, so as long as I don't run into any mishaps, you'll see those stories as well. Now let's get back to the video. Hello again. Essay here. Anyone who was paying attention during the 2016 election probably remembers how it turned out. But what most people probably weren't paying attention was all the scuttlebutt and propaganda that was taking place at the time. Indeed, people with a D next to their names were going on and on about how it was likely going to be an election between Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush. Of course, we all know it didn't turn out that way. And of course, at that time, there were people like Tom Hanks, for example, and Michael Moore, who saw Trump, who ended up being the nominee, as a clown, as a buffoon, as a used car salesman, but in a very nice suit. And therefore they didn't take him seriously. No, they thought he was a joke. And I'll concede, at the time, I did too. Because at the time, I didn't know anything about Trump's politics. Indeed, I only remember him from the 1980s. The United States Football League, the Taj Mahal Casino, Trump Air, formerly Eastern Airlines. Yeah. And of course, all those divorces. So, but as for his politics, what he thought about the national debt or foreign policy, I didn't know nothing. So I said, man, this guy is a joke. And yet, he got the nomination, and then, to the surprise of everyone, he became president. And of course, people with a D next to their name, of course, they were totally shocked. And then they became enraged. And of course, anyone who remembers what happened next, I don't have to explain it to you. Like, for example, Crossfire Hurricane. You say, what the hell is that? Yeah, that was something that was cooked up by the Obama administration as they're going out the door. Now, officially, they claim they were investigating Russian collusion. But of course, as we all know, they knew it was a fairy tale cooked up by the DNC and Hillary Clinton to basically kneecap Trump. Problem is, at that time, the news media had some integrity. And indeed, anyone who remembers the Steele dossier remembers how when they looked through it, they just saw so many errors, not just grammar errors. I mean, for example, in it, they claimed that people working for Trump visited a bunch of Russians at the Russian embassy in Miami. And you say, wait, what? Yeah. And of course, anyone knows anything knows that the embassy is not in Miami. It's not even in Florida. It's in Washington, D.C. Okay, are we clear? And before you say it, no, the Russians do not do not and have never had a consulate in Miami. Yeah, it was stuff like that that real journalists could see, and that's why they never published the Steele dossier during the election. And of course, anyone who remembers the Mulder report knows that after wasting almost 2 solid years of taxpayer resources, they found out that the Steele dossier was bunk, and the whole damn Crossfire Hurricane and the reasons why it got started was BS. Well, whoop-de-doo, who are you? What a difference 8 years makes. And believe me, anyone's been paying attention to this election cycle, hey, I don't have to explain it to you, you already can see it. Because it's not just the news media, or even certain elements of academia, or even the DNC leadership. I mean, there's, oh my God, multitudes of people who have basically lost their minds. Why? Well, I'm about to show you a video by Mark Dice, and he can explain it to you a lot better than I can. Okay, are you ready? Here we go.
Well, the Democrats may have dropped their October surprise yesterday, 2 weeks to the date from the 2024 presidential election, and it was the lead story on every CNN and MSNBC show, which will bleed over into today, for the rest of this week. This may be it, and it's basically a rerun from any given night, from any given CNN show or MSNBC show from the last 8 years. Donald Trump, they say, loves Hitler.
I think we just have to take a moment and pause there to note how remarkable that is.
Your lies and how desperate you are, it is remarkable.
That someone who served as a chief of staff to the former president of the United States, as a retired Marine general, is saying that the person he served meets the definition of a fascist. Of course, that comes after we heard that the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, who was handpicked by Donald Trump, has also called him a fascist in private. Now, this is all coming as Kelly, during these interviews, is also confirming reports that Trump has made admiring statements.
Let me correct her. Repeating Operation Mockingbird lies.
Is also confirming reports that Trump has made admiring statements about Hitler.
Okay. Matt Drudge, who was once hailed a pioneer in conservative media for starting a website and then by chance being handed the Monica Lewinsky story on a silver platter from somebody that he knew and then publishing it when Newsweek magazine refused to publish it, which then launched his career, which he rode on that story on the coattails for many years until finally, sadly, getting Trump derangement syndrome, stage 4. He updated his website last night, most likely from a gay bathhouse somewhere in San Francisco, to these ridiculous headlines. And it wasn't just the top story that they talked about at the top of the hour. It was all they talked about all day, every hour, every segment, on every show on Clown News and MSDNC. Here's Caitlin Collins returning from a commercial break to continue beating a dead horse, to saturate the airwaves with this fake news, just hoping to reach as many morons as possible who happen to tune in to this nonsense.
Back with our breaking news tonight is Donald Trump's former chief of staff, his longest serving chief of staff, General John Kelly, is now going on the record 2 weeks before the election to say that Trump meets the definition of a fascist and said nice things about Hitler.
Okay.
Not just because of his admiration for Adolf Hitler, but because of his admiration for Adolf Hitler's generals. In an article by Jeffrey Goldberg in The Atlantic about Donald Trump's admiration for Hitler and Hitler's generals, who every
person with a brain in America and around the world knows is fake news being spread through Operation Mockingbird. Here's Anderson Operation Mockingbird Cooper, who interned not just one summer, but 2 summers with the CIA and then buried that. Didn't mention that on his resume until just a few years ago when it was uncovered and published on a website. And then he reluctantly did admit it Here he is, accidentally admitting the Democrats' playbook, trying to desperately convince the undecided voters that Donald Trump is Hitler.
If there are some people who are undecided, I guess the question is, for those undecided people, do we really want to spend the next 4 years every day with this kind of stuff?
No, absolutely. I mean, this is not a news cycle that I would think Donald Trump would want. But here,
Look at him practically choking on his lies. What a pathetic and desperate little demon, who, by the way, gets paid about $50,000 per day, per show. That's how much these people are making in their salaries. $1 million a month, 50 grand a show, times 20, $12 million a year to sit there and spew these lies to the American people. This fake news originated in The Atlantic, which is an elitist Democrat liberal rag, which is owned by Steve Jobs' widow, Lauren Powell, who admits here the reason why she bought it.
And so it was obvious that if we could be part of the creation of cultural narrative, that would enhance and amplify all the work that we're doing.
Which is Hillary Clinton talked about today, is telling the story, getting the content out there.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So these are early days for us, but that's the idea behind it. We want to inspire the kind of stories that we'd like to see told.
They would like to help Operation Mockingbird set the liberal agenda in the mainstream media. But not all of their assets are capable of sticking to the talking points. Reading off of a teleprompter for them is easy because a whole team of writers and editors put those propaganda pieces together. But when the political pundits are just there spewing their nonsense off the top of their head, sometimes they make blunders like this.
The contrast could not be more stark. Yes, we have a dismal economy, but we are also facing the prospect of fascism. And actually, the economy isn't even that dismal.
Whoops, I didn't mean to mention that the economy sucks and inflation is out of control and there's a housing crisis because of the inflation and the tens of millions of illegal aliens who have invaded our country. I didn't mean that at all.
Things are rebounding, but everyone is talking about the economy. But in fact, we are actually facing the real premise and specter of fascism.
The economy sucks, but if you vote for Donald Trump, we're going to face fascism. And a new USA Today poll just came out showing that among likely Latino voters, Donald Trump is crushing Kamala Harris 49 to 38% in their favorability rating. And so they also released another fake story that's gone viral. The Mockingbirds are repeating about how Donald Trump supposedly insulted a dead Mexican soldier.
Trump had told the family that the military would be paying for the funeral. And then he said, if you need help, I'll help you out. So a few months later, when he's in this meeting with staff, this is where the reporting comes in. According to Goldberg, Trump asked, did they bill us for the funeral? What did it cost? According to attendees and contemporaneous notes of the meeting taken by a participant, and aide answers, yes, we received a bill. The funeral cost $60,000. Trump became angry. It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a Mexican. Excuse my language there. I just read it. But that's what he said.
Oh, that's what he said. No, that is the fake news story that's being spread in order to try to tarnish his image among Latino voters. In fact, the family of this fallen soldier and Mark Meadows, who was in the meeting that Donald Trump allegedly made these comments, have denounced these horrific lies.
I don't understand how we got so toxic.
This is Obama in Wisconsin yesterday.
And just so divided and so bitter. And I get why sometimes people just don't want to pay attention to it. And we all have friends like that. We have family members who just like, it's all a circus out there. I get that.
You started the circus. You started spreading the toxic fake news in order to undermine the Trump administration by any means necessary. And the caretakers at the White House Senior Living Center made the mistake of allowing Joe Biden to meander around outside again, where he found a microphone and some cameras to talk to, and admitted the Democrats' new plan for Donald Trump.
I mean, so I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up.
We gotta lock him up, he said. And he must have seen the panic in his caretakers' faces, because then he added, politically lock him up. And then later the White House tried to spin it saying he meant to say to lock him out, not lock him up.
Okay, you saw that. Now, of course, some of you who haven't lost your minds will immediately say, if this story is legit, why did anyone been sitting on it for like 4 solid years or even longer? Yeah, that's a very good question. And more importantly, what was Kelly doing in the White House? Because anyone who knows Kelly knows that he and his brother, they're twins, are both astronauts. Well, at least they used to be. They're retired now. But one of them, the last time I checked, it was currently I can't remember if he's currently running, but I think he did run to be a senator from Arizona. I can't remember if he's running now or ran before. Like I said, I'm kind of iffy on that part as a Democrat. But as for his other brother, like I said, I'm as a loss for words what he was doing in the White House. And of course, as you saw in Mark Dice's video, he claimed that Trump made some disparaging remarks about not only about a dead Mexican soldier, which is kind of peculiar because they didn't get into weeds about exactly how this Mexican soldier got dead and why Trump felt compelled to pay for their funeral expense. And then, of course, there's that, if you remember in Mark Dice's video, the other part about Trump praising Hitler's generals. Excuse me? Anyone who remembers World War II remembers that the Germans were on the losing side. Therefore, if anyone who is familiar with World War II history knows that if you are worldly, or just speaking pure hypotheticals, and you got into a war situation, you probably wouldn't want the generals that Hitler had. Just saying. In fact, you probably want the generals that Stalin had. You know, like Marshal Zhukov. Yeah. Have to admit, the guy may have been a communist, but he definitely knew his way around a tank. But still. And of course, as you saw in Mark Dice's video, these stories came from The Atlantic. And of course, if you're familiar with The Atlantic, I don't have to explain it to you, but if you're ignorant, okay. It's basically a publication that was taken over by a bunch of radical leftists and liberals. And no, these people have no integrity of any kind, journalism or otherwise. They're just leftists and liberals. And at that point, you can say, oh, so The Atlantic is just a leftist rag. Precisely. So once you're familiar with the source, then you can probably say, well, okay, this story is probably BS. Yeah, really? What an incredible notion you've discovered. And therefore you say, so this story, which allegedly took place over 4 years ago, is only appearing now 2 weeks before a major presidential election to basically make Trump look like A, a cheap asshole, and B, a bigot. And at this point you say, but didn't the left have been trying to smear Trump as a racist and a bigot ever since he first ran for president? And the word is, yeah, and wait for it, you ready? He isn't the first person who ran for president with an R next to his name that people accuse of being a racist. Indeed, everyone who remembers Romney, yeah, old Mitt, when he ran for president, Joe Biden, who was vice president and whose brain still kind of halfway worked, he famously said to an audience of black folks that you can't vote for Romney because he'll put you back in chains. He said that, and the video's still on the computer if you want to look for it. And they say, why would he say that? Simple. Because he wants to win an election. And therefore, if you want to scare people to vote for your side, say the other guy is the devil incarnate. Does it work? Well, it did in the case of Romney, because anyone who remembers the senator from Nevada who was the head of the Senate during the time of Obama, damn, I can't remember the fellow's name. He's dead now, but when he was the head of the Senate under Obama, someone asked him about the things he said about Romney during the previous election. This was in 2012. And he said, and he asked, damn, I wish I could remember that damn senator's name. Damn, I wish I could remember it. Sorry. But anyway, they asked him about some of the things he said about Romney. You know, outlandish stuff. And his reply was, well, Romney's not president, is he? Yeah. So what does that mean? That means that that senator from Nevada knew that he was saying a bunch of garbage. And he was doing it just to win an election. And indeed, way back when George W. Was president and Katrina happened, old Kanye West, yeah, before he, long back when he was still on the liberal side of things, he famously claimed in the aftermath of Katrina, you know, the hurricane, that George Bush hates white folks. No, sorry, hates brown people. And according to people in the Bush White House, Bush, he didn't like that. Indeed, according to multiple witnesses, it really stung him. Why? Because it was true? Not necessarily. It was just that he felt he was being defamed. Now, of course, anyone who remembers the Bush administration's response to Katrina was no slipshot, but it probably wasn't necessarily because of racial animus. It was probably just that the people at FEMA were just plain incompetent. And indeed, anyone who remembers Katrina knows that, yeah, the guy who ran FEMA, he only had that job because he was a major donor to the Republican Party. In other words, this guy knew nothing about search and rescue or caring for refugees or anything like that. So there you go. But as for what's going on right now with Trump, I think it's safe to presume that this story out of the Atlantic is just pure bunk. It's just more lies and deceit from people with a D next to their name trying to win an election. Just like how they defamed old Romney, and of course how they tried to defame Trump back when he was president once before. Remember the Very Fine People hoax? Yeah. Even Snopes, after 8 long years, finally came out publicly and said, oh, by the way, remember that Fine People hoax? Well, guess what? It was a hoax. Trump never praised white supremacists and neo-Nazis after that mess that happened over in Virginia over that damn rusted statue of General Lee. So what does that mean? It just means that the Democrats haven't learned their lesson. Indeed, I remember when I was a little kid, I was told that allegedly P.T. Barnum said this, even though historians claim he didn't. But anyway, he famously said that you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And you know what? No one hasn't proven that statement wrong. Well, I think the Democrats are going to find out after November 5th whether their malarkey about Trump will persuade anyone to vote for Harris. Personally, if you're not been driven insane by 8 years of leftist propaganda about the man, and you haven't, actually settled on who you're going to vote for, I think you probably already know who you're going to vote for now after this story came out. Are you going to vote for the people who lie to win elections? Or are you going to vote for someone who has been lied upon by people who want to lie to win elections? Well, that's all I got to say about this ridiculous propaganda about Trump. And that's my opinion.